Right.
Take 7.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us. We're in the midst of a relationship series, and today we're just talking about some of the questions you had. We're talking about what we see in the culture in the midst of dating and singleness, and really just trying to get the heart at what does God have for us in this season? What is His wisdom for this season of our life? And so before we hop into the questions that they've given us, what are you guys just seeing in the culture right now that really pertains to where our teenagers are at in terms of singleness and dating?
I think there's this thing where everybody's Snapchatting each other, and that seems to be the way they start getting to know each other. And so it's digital instead of in person is a big change I've seen in the last few years.
Yeah, technology's affected the dating scene a lot.
Yeah,
I think also with that too, that kind of encourages the image that you're putting out when a lot of it's starting on social media and being dictated by social media. A lot of times the vulnerability or the honesty of people, you're seeing different sides of people that they really show in person because of social media and them trying to put forth different perspective than maybe some people would say if they knew them really well. And so maybe they're putting forth a more happy or a more whatever image of themselves to maybe look more attractive to some of those others around them.
Yeah, I was thinking about really how we're in an Instagram culture for our teenagers of.
Hence this.
Yeah, right? Yeah, welcome to Instagram.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but it's image is a bigger deal. On top of that, your options in terms of dating or getting to people are vastly greater than it used to be because you can just search a name or search a location or whatever. And so now you're not just dating the people who are on your soccer team or who are at your schools, but literally there are long distance relationships forming across the country because you stumbled on a profile or things like that. So your access is greater, but generally the depth in which you know someone is way shallower because you're not spending time in person building those relationships.
I know, I wonder about the emotional investment you get from talking to someone over text or digitally because, like you said, you're just putting your best self out there. You're not really showing the vulnerable parts. And so if you're emotionally connected to this person before you even meet them in person, it's kind of scary to think about what you're revealing about yourself before you've even sat down across from a person.
Yeah. Gosh, I think about how that affects social skills to some extent, not whether or not we have socially awkward teenagers, but in the terms of there's certain communication skills you need in a relationship to tackle difficult issues. And so how does that season prepare you for when you're dating a guy or a girl and something difficult comes up, but you've never had to have a moment of courage to speak on something hard or difficult to someone face to face because all of your in-depth conversation is behind the safety of a screen. And so what does that do to prepare students for that aspect of the relationship?
Yeah, I think too of that. One, I don't think this is a struggle that's specifically to this generation or to recent times, but vulnerability has always been something that people struggle with, like sharing the more unpopular, the more darker, if you want to say, more sinful sides, or just the struggles that you have. It's not something that you really enjoy doing because you don't want to admit that, hey, maybe I'm not perfect, maybe I'm not the best. And so the digital age doesn't help that at all, but also with the communication type things of it's hard to have a really good relationship when both sides aren't vulnerable with the other person. Like if I'm only sharing 50% of myself and you're only sharing 50% of yourself, well, we're missing a large portion of who we are as people. And so it's really hard to even create a tight bond or a deep understanding of each other in that sense when we're not willing or able to share some of those things that we might not want to share because of fear or rejection or shame or whatever those things might be. And so when we talk about communication and things like that, even the vulnerability is a hindrance to a deep, or a lack of vulnerability is a hindrance to a deeper relationship. And that's something that's really been a struggle for years and years, but it is something that still is pertinent to people today. So
it's been heightened by all of that. Yeah, I totally see that. Part of me wonders about if the perseverance or the sustainability of relationships have been hindered by that image. If every Instagram relationship that you see, the standard is perfection of always laughing and on awesome dates and traveling the world together. If when you get in a relationship that's normal and it doesn't meet up to those standards, if it feels wrong or off because of your standard of relationship is so high, unrealistically high, that what is healthy, good, normal relationship doesn't seem to satisfy because we've been taught that it looks different.
Yeah.
How have you seen the digital age, whether it's Instagram or texting, affect dating from either like a young adult view or watching these students navigate that world?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I've noticed, not only with students, but even like girls my age, we just really want to be perceived well on social media. And we receive, I think, most of our affirmation or whatever from social media, whether that's Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is. And I mean, like, I don't know, I think it really, like, I think you nailed it with, like, the vulnerability thing. I feel like now I see a lot of relationships, high school relationships, even college-age relationships, where it's just like you see an individual, oh, they're cute, they're attractive, you know, we could make this work, whatever, and they'll, you know, you just, like, you head into, like, this relationship together, just, you know, not even sure of, like, what anyone's intentions are. You don't even know why, like, you want to start dating, why you want to pursue dating. It's just you want to, you know, just you know, do it. And I think when we don't know our intentions going into a relationship and we're kind of just like, well, it'll work, you know, like true love, you know, like whatever. I think it can be really damaging a few weeks in, and you realize, okay, like things are getting hard, and I'm seeing your vulnerable side, and I don't know. We really don't have a foundation, because our foundation is you're attractive and I'm attractive, you know. So I don't know.
It has kind of elevated that as, like, you know, in teen culture especially, physical attraction has always been kind of a dominant thing that you're looking for. Is, you know, is that person, am I attracted to that person or whatever? But I think you're right. Social media has even maybe elevated it or bumped it up even higher in terms of priority, because that's what you see. Like, you're not on Instagram and you're like, oh, this person's got phenomenal character. Like, I love their heart for puppies. Like, it's not that. It's really how well they market themselves. Like, we're almost teaching kids to market their personality and their experiences in a way that's attractive to other people. And I'm with you. I've had several conversations with students where they can tell me the number of the most likes they've ever had on a picture. Wow. Like, because that affirmation means so much to them. And so when you're talking about that, I was like, what does that do to our hearts and our personalities when we're so wrapped around making myself look good and then being validated through a couple of double taps on your picture? Is there anything that you guys, as we talk about all of that, and kind of the culture they're living in, the culture they're seeing themselves through, the culture that they're interacting with each other through, is there any advice or wisdom that you would speak into them?
I think the digital age of starting to date can be a good thing. I think you can get to know somebody over text, and when you see those red flags, trust them. Don't dismiss them like, oh, but he's hot enough to overlook this. And I think that's what happens, is you're like, well, maybe he didn't really mean that, because in text you can misunderstand what their intention is. And so trust those red flags and don't overlook them. I mean, I think God gives us a certain amount of wisdom to know, hey, this is not good, and don't just keep pushing. I mean, I think it's okay to sacrifice that. It's okay to be alone and not settle for less than what you know God has for you.
Any other advice, thoughts you'd give to the teenagers who are navigating the space?
Well, real quick, just like go off of that. Like spot the red flags, but also listen to your trusted mentors, your group leaders, your trusted friends. When they say, hey, that's a red flag, he should not be talking to you like that, or she should not be talking to you like that, whatever it is, like, we need to trust, like, community in that, because community is huge in a relationship. So
We've talked about a lot of times the expectations or the standards that people will set for a relationship are either too high, that they can't find that guy who makes $100,000, can travel all around all the world, never gets mad, never argues, always like, yeah, you're right, I'm wrong. Like, we can't ever find that guy, so then we get really upset and impatient with relationships. But then also sometimes we don't have enough standards, and so then we just date anything in front of us, which then you wonder, and people wonder, and I've seen this throughout my life, not necessarily partially in my own experience, but especially a lot of my friends, that you wonder why there's so much heartbreak and hurt and struggle and aggravation because we're just dating anybody without really stopping and taking time to think, who is the person I should be dating? What does that look like? Who do they look like? So yeah, the expectations, they are super important when we're stepping into a relationship, or even when we're thinking about potentially dating in the future, of what's the kind of person that not do I want, but do I need? Like, what are the different qualities I need in a person? What are the things that are important in a person? And then allowing that to keep us kind of grounded in those moments where we're like, oh, he's really cute or she's really pretty. Let that kind of slow us down and think, okay, like, wait, how does this fit with standards I've wanted, or maybe standard Scripture sets forth? Yeah, I think expectations are a huge help or hindrance, depending on what they look like for a person.
I think it's so cool in conjunction with what you were saying, like, what are we, good or healthy expectations? Sometimes it needs to be from the mentors in our life, the people who are married and know what it takes to endure and enjoy marriage. Like, it's a process, it's long, and it takes a certain amount of humility and security and grace to do that. And so if we're going to get healthy expectations, we should probably not be getting them from social media or from our friends who are also 15, but we should be getting them from people who are living it and breathing it every day. The thing that's stuck out to me is just that communication skills that I kind of talked about before. Is I would really encourage our students, as you're navigating a relationship, and a lot of relationships are starting over phones, whether it's sending someone a DM or getting someone Snapchat and snapping them and stuff like that. I would say, as much as you can, spend time communicating in person. Even if you have to communicate through the phone, talk on the phone, FaceTime, those kind of things, because those are foundational skills that will help you navigate every part of that relationship. The good times, the hard times, the confusing times. And if we don't learn to do that, that's going to make persevering in your relationship and enduring a hard moment so much harder if we don't have that. Let's hop into our first question. We got 2 questions today. Our first question says, how do you know it's God's timing and not us thinking that it's God's timing when it's not, when it comes to dating? How do we know it's our timing, or it's God's timing, not just us thinking that it might be God's timing? How do you discern that voice in there?
I wish I knew.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Good question.
Yeah, I would say just to start is, I think the fact that you're asking that question says your heart's in the right place.
That's good.
The fact that you are even concerning is, what does God want for my life, says that, while you may not know the answer, that you're looking for the answer in the right place, in the right way. So I'd say that should be affirming to you in your walk. Any thoughts on practical advice of how do I discern this, whether it's if this is God or if this is me, or is this the time or is this not the time?
I think one is looking at yourself and saying, where am I personally? Am I someone that anybody would want to date? Because I think we often are looking, let me find the perfect person, and we're rarely looking at ourselves. And so maturity-wise, are you ready to date? And I think asking God, I think you can just, if it's really difficult, while relationships are difficult, I think if it's very difficult to discern that, or you're not sure, there's some answer in that, because I think God is the author of peace.
Right.
And so if there's confusion, I think that could be your answer, that maybe the time's not right for you.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and Stacey, kind of with the personal route, I would also say, like, look at the person that you're evaluating. Like, if it's a person that is living a life that does not look like someone who follows Christ or who loves the Lord, I'd say it'd be a pretty good hint that maybe that's not the right person.
Yeah.
But if it's a guy,
But what if they're really hot?
I mean, well, then you can reconsider.
Exception.
Yeah. No. Man, now you made me lose my train of thoughts. No. So if it is a guy or a girl who you can see loves the Lord, who is spending time in the Word, who's involved in church, whose weekends and weekdays look like someone who loves Christ, I could be wrong, and I'm wrong on a lot of stuff, but I don't think Satan's trying to tempt us to date people that love the Lord.
Poor
strategy. Maybe sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think if it's someone who you can look at and say, well, they're involved with their church, they respect and they value others, they're confident in who Christ has made them to be, and you can see some of these things. Oftentimes I think that whether or not the timing is right and whether or not we're ready is something we have to consider. But if it's a person like that, then oftentimes I wouldn't lean to, hey, well, that's probably Satan trying to tempt me to date somebody that loves the Lord.
Yeah.
I would more so think and try to evaluate, like, this could be a person I could date, this could be a person I could grow together with, but evaluating the person that you're looking at or that you're desiring is huge, because if they are someone who lives a life that looks like Christ, then that could be something that you continue to pursue. But if it's someone who doesn't, if it's someone that doesn't seem to have any interest or care about their relationship with the Lord at all, then that would be a huge hint at maybe this isn't the right person, period, before I even think about if I'm ready or anything like that.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
I think we need to analyze ourselves, and we need to have, again, community, trusted adults help us figure out what are our wants, our desires, our needs, what gaps are we trying to fill. If you do see, a prospect or, a guy or a girl that you're like, hey, they're kind of cute. I think just ask yourself, okay, if I'm wanting to pursue a relationship with this individual, really what am I pursuing? Am I lonely? Do all my friends have girlfriends and or boyfriends, and I need that? I don't know. If you're filling a gap that the Lord is intended to fill, then maybe it's not time, and maybe it's time to focus on just you and the Lord.
I like that, checking your motivations there to say, why am I dating this person? I think something that's wise, it's not fail-proof or foolproof in the terms of, like, it's not always get the right answer, but sometimes when I come to decisions, I'm trying to figure out, all right, is this of me or is this of God? What I do is I play out the situation as, like, if I were to do this, who's benefiting? Is this for my pleasure, my glory, my life being fulfilled, or is God going to be benefiting? Is his kingdom being built? And I think there's obviously God as a father has good gifts that he wants for his children. So I think not every time you're like, I think sometimes people feel guilty when they get good things. They're like, oh no, like I'm just serving myself. And I think sometimes God does want to give us good gifts, but I think it's sometimes telling to say, why are we doing this, and to who is this benefiting? That might give us some wisdom. Yeah. My other thought in this for this person and anyone considering this kind of line of thinking in terms of timing, I always think that there's two ways that God predominantly speaks into our decisions. I think that sometimes he gives us words. Sometimes he'll give us a word, and sometimes he just gives us wisdom. Sometimes he gives us a word where we're praying about it. I think we should always be praying about these decisions, anything that's going to impact us or our life. And sometimes in prayer we might receive a word. Sometimes when we're in the Bible and we're reading something, God just convicts us or points something out to us, and he gives us a word. And sometimes he gives us wisdom. And I think it's, if you're in the Word, he's put wisdom in here. If you're in community, he's put wisdom here. He's putting wisdom here. And so, like, God's given you wisdom. I think one of the hard parts is I think sometimes people, after they've done their best, they've spent time with the Lord, they've spent time in community, and they're still undecided, and they're afraid, if I choose the wrong decision, God's going to be frustrated with me. I'm going to abandon the will of God, that he's going to be upset with me. And I guess I'd say two things to you. One is, if you've done your due diligence, I think you've honored the Lord in your process. All you can do is, if you don't know the answer, all you can do is honor the Lord in your process. Right. And the Lord's not going to be mad at you for using everything he gave you. Like, as a parent, I've got kids who are in first and third grade. I would never go to my third grader and give them a sixth grade math problem, then be like, why aren't you smart enough to figure it out? Like, and being mad they don't have the resources that was never taught them. And I don't think God's looking at us saying, hey, you're human and you don't know the future and you don't know this other person's heart. How come you got this wrong? Like, you can only do your best, and I think God honors that if we honor him in the process.
I think when you're talking about timing, is we are in a hurry all the time, and God's not in a hurry, and so we tend to try to speed things up to meet our timeline. And so my personal experience is, waiting can be frustrating, but there is wisdom that comes in the wait, because you're really getting that extra time to discern the person, to check yourself, check your heart, and so don't be in a hurry.
Yeah. And I'd say too, even to hop on what y'all two were just saying, I heard it used as an illustration for, like, what does God want me to do with my life, where at college, just things like that. Well, that's just an example, because it's one of those important things that we get so hyped up about that we stop and we spend, like, so much time praying, like, every single night, God, where do you want me to go to college? What do you want me to do? What job? All these different things. Which that's not necessarily bad, but I heard a pastor one time more so give advice to, don't be so focused on the things like a college or things like a future job, because oftentimes that just brings distraction and anxiety.
Yeah.
Instead, he says, when we're walking with the Lord, when we're following the Lord, when we're in step with the Lord, he's going to guide us where he wants us to go. And so sometimes we can overcomplicate some of these simple things of following Christ, and God's going to give me the things that he wants me to have, and he's going to take away the things he doesn't want me to have. And so even in the college job situation, when I was used that to evaluate what I needed to do, where I wanted to go, or where the Lord wanted me to go, that was such an easier process. Because it's like, all right, God, I'm not going to be concerned about this. I'm going to think about this, and I'm going to pray about it, but my main focus will be pursue you. And every single time I've ever used that strategy in my life or prayer walk, every single time he's given me peace on the decision and confidence on the decision that he's wanted me to walk through. It's never been a confusing, like, I don't know, this could go really bad. Every single time, sometimes it's waiting, sometimes you have to be really patient for it. Every single time I've ever just pursued the Lord and followed him day after day, eventually he gives me peace and confidence and direction. And so if we're in a place and we're like, man, is this the right time for me to date? Is this the right person for me to date? So don't get so focused. Don't get so focused on that person and trying to figure out if that's the right thing for you at this moment. Instead, keep following Christ, because Christ is going to light our path. He's going to show us the way he wants us to go. And like I said, sometimes it's going to be wisdom of, I've laid out all these things for you, and now either one could be a good option, and I'll give you the wisdom to decide. But I think another important thing too is God is in control. So no matter what happens in our life, no matter the things that we choose, whether they were of God or not of God, eventually God can use all those things for his good and our glory, or his glory, our good. And so that's something that kind of relieves some of the pressure off of these everyday decisions, because even if we make a wrong decision, or even when we sin, he's going to use those things eventually for his glory and our good. And so even in our mess ups, it's eventually going to be turned for a good purpose. And so I think that's an encouraging thing too, that that y'all can hold on to, that even if we might make the wrong decision, God's not fooled by that. And so he can use that for his good and ours also. And so
I love what you're saying, is emphasizing, hey, pursue the Lord, because that emphasizes the personal the personal relationship aspect of our faith. So many times we want a formula. God, if I have this problem, you say this advice, I get this answer. And I think sometimes the Lord doesn't make it that clear because he wants us and not just our problems to be solved. And so let's hop to our next question. I want to date, but I don't want to pick the wrong partner. So what do I do? How do I avoid that? How do I not end up with the wrong person?
Something that I have said for years is believe what people show you about themselves. And so if you, look at, you talked about this Sunday night as their past. I can't remember exactly your phrasing.
Talking about patterns. Their patterns
of
pursuit. What are they pursuing?
Look at their patterns of behavior. And if you see something good or bad, and if that is a pattern that you're seeing, I think that's how you can discern. Personally, one thing that I do, this is my insider tips, so I have 2 younger kids, and how people treat them really shows me their heart. And if we go out to eat, I look at how people treat the server, because
That's good.
like how you treat people tells me a whole lot about your heart. And so those are some of the things that I'm looking for practically in their character.
I love that. That's very practical advice.
Very practical.
Yeah. I'd say, I know Emily, she could speak to this. She's talked a lot about this with us already, and even Sunday nights. But stepping back and asking why. Like, why am I really wanting to date? Like, I think, again, that's a good heart question. Like, we need to constantly be evaluating ourselves and our motivations behind things, because there are plenty of times where talk to friends or in my own life, I say, like, well, right now I just feel like I really want to be with somebody because I don't want to be alone. Or maybe I don't. I feel like I'm missing something, and I feel like that person could fill that gap. And so I think one helpful advice is to make sure you're picking the wrong person, is to first step back. Don't even think about the person, but again, evaluating yourself as we've talked about, and making sure that what is the reason behind me really wanting to be with this person? Is it because I'm lonely? Is it because my friends all have a dating relationship? Is it because I feel like I'm empty and that person will complete me, as people say? Or maybe my life is better when I'm dating with someone, because all all of those things are lies or are things that kind of distract us from the true purpose of relationships and the true purpose of dating and the true purpose of even marriage one day down the road. All of those things, the holes in our hearts, the loneliness that we face, all of those things can be satisfied by Christ and should be satisfied by Christ.
Yeah.
But if our reasoning for the dating is to fulfill those things, then obviously we're not in a good space. That needs to be something that we need to work out with the Lord before we're really pursuing that person. But I would say with the person, again, as far as looking at their patterns, look at their character. Again, look at what they value, look at what they spend their time with, look at who they spend their time with, the people and the friends that they've come close to. And all of those things will give some hints. Again, it's not going to be the full proof that if they have really good Christian friends, that means I'm supposed to date them. That's not it. But again, if they have friends that aren't living lives that replicate Christ, like oftentimes we're around the people that we either want to be around or that we are like already. And so that tells a lot about us. And so if they're around friends that maybe don't live out the life of a believer, that's something to question, that's something to think of, that's a potential red flag. And so I'd say look at their character, look at the people that they spend time with, look at the way they treat people and value others, and that's going to give you a pretty good tell of, is this person, would it even be beneficial for me to date this person? Would this be something that would be helpful for both of us? And then once you get to that question, you can really start getting into, well, Lord, do you want me to date this person right now? But I
think that's huge in terms of character. And like, if you want to know what the character of someone you should date is, just look in here. Just look at the passages, talking about marriage or love, and it starts to do it. I wonder, what are we using as our measuring stick for character? Like so many times, like if you're trying to see if this person's measuring up, what are you using to set those standards? Like if I feel like most of our standards are different than this, and so like how do we learn to adopt those standards? Is we gotta be in the Word, because that's gonna be huge in discernment.
I think the transition from singleness to dating is a really weird one. It's hard, it's confusing, and there's a lot to pray through. There's a lot to seek godly counsel about, and I think like the number one question that we need to be asking ourselves before we even begin to date or to enter the dating realm is to ask yourself the big scary question of, will God be enough for me? Like, is God alone enough? Like, if the Lord calls me to a lifetime of singleness, will His presence be enough in my life? And that is a very scary question. That is a very scary question. And if your answer to that question is yes, He will be enough, then I think that kind of puts you in good standing. I feel like that puts you in a good position to receive a relationship. One of my points I said Sunday was, how can this relationship build me up and draw both parties nearer to God? That's the end goal. Like the end goal, when we're on our deathbeds, our question should be like, did I know Christ and not did I know my partner? Or and that, that's scary, and that's but I don't know, just asking yourself, okay, does this person just build me up? Do I like who I am around this person? I think that's huge. Do I like this person? Also, that's huge too. But yeah, how are you in your relationship with God? How are you two growing closer with the help or the support? Yeah,
even like iron sharpens iron. And so when I'm with this person, do they build me up? But do I want to be a better person? Are they pushing me to be better? Am I pushing them to be better? Because if you're unequally yoked and if you're with someone who's not a believer, what standards? You can't expect them to live up to this standard. And so I think that's one thing to measure is, how can you expect any Christian values from somebody who doesn't have them or doesn't even know what they are? But just iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, as I was thinking through this, I was thinking if someone who's thinking through this lens is generally, it sounds like a fear-based question. Like, how do I not make a mistake? And there's generally, when you're trying to evaluate someone, in my head, there's two immediate categories I look at. I try to look at compatibility. Are we compatible? And character, which you were talking about. And character, you can, as long as you have the right measuring stick, you can evaluate that to some degree. Compatibility, unfortunately, is one of those things that you can kind of test a little bit, but you don't know till you're in it. And so I would say spend time with these people before you date them. Spend in life or in real life time with them where you're around them and you can get a sense of who they are. One of the things that hurt me about social media is a lot of people are dating outside of their friend groups in schools and stuff like that. And so you really have no idea what this person is like. And so you get into these relationships and you don't really know their character or their compatibility and you're guessing. And so, man, my grandfather, his graduating class was 19 and he married one of them. And so people in this city, there's like graduating classes of 730. So it's not like there's not enough people in your high school who are there or in your church. Like there are plenty of people here who you can be spending time around and evaluating. Do they have the right character and could we be compatible? And if they're here, hopefully they have the same kingdom goals as you. But I guess my encouragement as we close this out is you can only do so much. You should do all that's in your power to do. You want to make the right decisions. You want to do it in godly counsel. You can only do so much. But when you mess up, some of that's not on you. At best, you're responsible for 50% of the relationship.
Right.
And so if a dating relationship doesn't work out, or if it's hard, or it goes places that you don't want, I think the good news is that God has grace for us in that He loves us in spite of our mistakes, that our value doesn't depend on how good our choices are. And so even when we don't get the stuff right, that He's still there, that He loves us, that He picks us up and He walks us forward.
Yeah.
So for those of you guys who submitted questions, I commend you on your thought process. Thanks for submitting these to us. And man, we'll look at doing this in a couple of weeks as we talk about love and lust, and then good old sex in a few weeks after that. It'll be a good time.
We're ready.
All right, good deal. See you guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.